Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is Sunday, so you know what that means, baby. We're doing a good, bad, and ugly, this time on the Acura RSX because I wanted to. I love the car. We did one for the Integra, we done some for the Civics, and so now we're going to do one for the RSX because it's a legendary car. We have to, okay? It's just needed. Also guys, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm coming down on my sickness a little bit here, so I can finally talk to you guys without sounding like I'm freaking Darth Vader, so that's sick. On top of that, guys, if you guys want to support the channel, head on over to www.smoothstance.com/shop to pick up yourself a hat, a shirt, or some shorts. I know it's the middle of winter and I'm selling shorts and t-shirts, but I'm not the smartest man out there, okay? I just know stuff about race cars. That's it. All right? Anyway, guys, let's get right into the video. All right, so the way this works, in case you're new here, is first I go over like the background of the car, like the engines it came in with, the trim levels, the body styles it was offered as, the years it was made, all that kind of stuff. Then I go into the modifying scene of the car, what people usually do when modifying these. Then I get into the good, the bad, and the ugly, which we'll talk about that when we get to it. And then finally, at the end of the video, I give an educated opinion on if I think you should buy the car or not, based on your scenario or your situation. But first is like the history of the car, not really the history, just like how the car is. So the Acura RSX, or just the 4th gen Acura or Honda Integra in countries where they got cool cars, was born in 2001 and died in 2006, which is honestly a pretty small run for a car, but it does make sense since Honda was kind of like on the way out with the Integra line at that time. It's sad, but you know, what are you gonna do? Honda sucks. Anyways, it was a 2-door 4-seater coupe, which is kind of weird since all Integras before it were offered as a sedan or a coupe. This one was not. It was just offered as a coupe. And it went through one facelift, and it did have a couple different trim levels. That facelift, all it really did was take the, like, you know how they had like the teardrop headlights and the teardrop taillights on the old Integra or old RSXs? Well, they took those away and just made them flat, which personally I don't like. I like the ones with the teardrops on them, but that's just me. Anyway, the base model, the Type S, and most importantly, the Type R were all three of the trim levels, and they all not only looked a little bit different, but they had completely different engines in them, which makes me happy to see. Most of the time, companies will just like add cruise control, or they'll add like power windows, or give it a certain color, and they'll call it a whole different trim level. Whereas Honda was like, if it's gonna have a different name, it better damn well be worth it. And I love that, Honda. Props to you. Now, the Type R trim was not available in North America, and they aren't legal to import yet, so if someone says that they got one, they are lying. Unless, of course, you don't live in America, then obviously then you can buy a Type R. So for the engines, they are as follows. All of the 3 trim levels came with a 2-liter inline-4 called the K20, but they all were different sub-options of the K20 and made different horsepower. The base model made 160 horsepower, the Type S made 200 horsepower, but later bumped up to 210 horsepower in the later years, and the Type R made 220 horsepower. So obviously, the higher you go with the trim level, the better the engine. But all those engines are named K20. And they had 2 different letters at the end of them, like A3 and A2 and stuff like that, which determines which one is which. If you really want to know a lot about that, then just go on Wikipedia. It'll tell you all about that part. It would take too much time to actually explain all that though right now. So just know that they're all called the K20, but have different letters at the end of it to determine which one is which. Some of them have different like internals or cams, obviously, to like increase the horsepower for the better models. And in case you don't know, that engine is very, very good for building cheap power, okay? Just putting that out there. If you don't know, the K20 is one of the most legendary Honda engines to ever come out. They're really good. All RSXs were only available as front-wheel drive, and they were offered with either a manual or an automatic transmission, for whichever one you prefer. Don't get the automatic, though. Now on to the modifying scene, baby, with the RSX. And they're front wheel drive. So right out of the gate, drifting is out of the picture. And what do people do when they can't build a drift car because everybody wants a drift car nowadays? Well, they build it to be an absolute monster on the streets. And since the RSX came with such a legendary engine, it's very easy to do that, all right? It's just like the easiest thing in the world. Like, if you can manage to turbocharge, if you can afford to turbocharge an RSX, you're talking upwards of 400, 500 horsepower on a stock engine. And in a car that weighs as little as that does, That's a lot of horsepower, all right? That's quick. They also are seen as show cars quite often too. People slam the crap out of RSXs like all day, every day. And it kind of sucks because there's so much potential there, but at the same time, like, they look really cool, so I can't complain. Like, I don't know, I'm on the fence about it. I'm like, dude, your car looks sick, but it could be so fast. Like, I'm happy it happened, but I'm sad it happened. I don't really know how to put it, man. And lastly, track days. They are used as track cars all the time. When the car came out, when the RSX came out, they were the only car to beat the previous generation Integra for fastest front-wheel drive production car around a track. So they are literally built to be a track car. It only makes sense that that's what people do with them. They go around tracks insanely quick. Part of that is due to it being front-wheel drive and having insanely good suspension work, and part of it is due to the amazing engine that's under the hood. It just worked, and it's really cool to see that. So a lot of people build them to be very fast track cars. But rally racing and drifting are just not really seen in these cars. Now it's time to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the way this works is first I go over the good, which are things that are just awesome about the car, you can't deny are good. Next I go over the bad, which are things that kind of suck, but they kind of don't. It's kind of up to you if you like it or not, or if you care about it or not. And finally we get into the ugly, which are things that are just god-awful about the car, and you can't lie, they're terrible. But we're going to start with the good, because I'm a happy puppy. And right off the bat is the reliability. These are so damn reliable. I mean, yes, it's a Honda, so it makes sense, but the K20 is just such a good engine, not only in building power, but also just being a reliable daily driver. Which also leads me into my next one, actually, the K20 itself. The K20 under the hood is legendary. Whether it's for building a race car or just daily driving, it checks all the boxes. You can't go wrong with a K20. Next is the cost of everything. I mean, the car itself can be found under $5,000 all day, every day, but on top of that, what else do you need if you're a car guy? Parts! You need parts. How expensive are the parts, Mark? They're really freaking cheap since it's a Honda. And they're everywhere too. You can choose between anything that you want. And then insurance is very cheap because it's just an inline four making 200 horsepower. Your insurance company is not going to be like, ooh, it's very fast, too fast. So they're going to give you dirt cheap insurance for it. It's a very cheap car, which is really cool. Next is the community is massive. They have every single Honda boy all over the place sitting right behind them, so that makes total sense. But most people, even not in the Honda community, respect RSX owners too. So you'll always get love no matter what. Next is the aftermarket support is through the roof. Parts are literally everywhere for any Honda. And so if you need something, no matter what your budget is, you'll be able to get it because they're just freaking pumping parts out for Hondas like they're babies, man. Next is the looks. Arguably, I'm going to put it out there, one of the best looking Hondas in the world. Once again, this one is kind of up to you, but I don't think I've ever seen somebody say anything bad about the looks of the RSX, so I put it in the good. But sure, if you don't like the looks of them, then I guess it's a bad thing, but I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, I hate the look of the RSX, so I'll put it in good. Next is it has very good subs and or like speakers. I know it's kind of small, but a lot of people say that there's no reason to buy any aftermarket subs in an RSX, which is honestly surprising. It's a cool little feature. If you're like a bass head and you really like listening to music, there you go. I personally don't really care. As long as I have a radio, I'll be fine. But the radio in the RSX is, I guess, really good. So that's pretty cool. And finally, for the good is the performance. And normally when I say performance in one of these videos, I mean straight line speed. But the RSX is better in a different kind of performance. It isn't the fastest in a straight line, but it is so unbelievably fast at cornering. So if you're looking for a very good like Toge race car, Canyon Carbon Beast, then these are one of the best options for you. Now it's time for the bad, which are things that are like take it or leave it. If you like it, that's great. If you don't, that sucks. Sorry, buddy. And right off the bat is the exhaust note. Personally, I don't like it, but it's up to you. So here's a clip. Next is the space for your friends and your family or whatever. Sure, you can fit people in the back, but they will not be comfortable, which leads into my next one, actually. It's not really a family-friendly car, okay? It can be if you have small enough children to fit in the back, like if you got like kids under like 13, but for the most part, don't expect to be bringing your kids to soccer practice in one of these cars. It's not a homey hauler, all right? You're not gonna be able to build a deck with an RSX, all right? It's just not possible. But it's not meant for that, so you probably, if you're thinking about doing that with an RSX, you're kind of stupid. Next is it kind of has a lot of road noise. It isn't like a comfortable, quiet ride, but it's a sports car. You should know this by now anyways. Next is they kind of leak a lot of oil, which seems to be the only problem with the K20 motor, which is a good thing, but it kind of is a big problem, obviously. Now, I don't really hear of many RSX owners complaining about it, so it must not bother them that much, but it does leak oil if you're worried about that. Next is it is front wheel drive, man, and I hate front wheel drive cars. I'm sorry. Personally, that's just a personal opinion, okay? It's don't bother me. It's just personal opinion. But I will say that it does make for some very, very fun, spirited driving, you know, up in the canyons or on some back roads with your homies. But if you want to have fun by doing some drifting or donuts, and sadly, this car ain't for you, baby. And finally, for the bad is some small things they tend to go in this car. It's an old car, it makes sense. Power door locks, power windows, the sunroof, and other small things they like to break, but they are all very small and not that big of a deal. On top of that, you got like paint fade and the leather seats ripping. It's gonna happen. It's like a 20-year-old car at this point, almost. So it makes sense. You have to realize that. Now it's time for the ugly, and right off the bat, I want to say before we even get into it, this car has only 2 uglies, but both the uglies aren't even that big of a deal. They're just things that could be a problem, you know what I mean? So honestly, this car did very good. I just want to put that out there. First though, for the uglies is the condition that most of them are in nowadays. People mistreated the crap out of this car like crazy, so finding one in good enough condition is hard. And since they are such well put together cars that are very reliable and very easy to drive and they don't have a lot of problems, finding out that it is in bad condition when you go to like take it on a test drive is kind of hard to do, which is a very, very scary risk, because you could be like, wow, this car drives very good, but that's just because it's a Honda. And then you take it home and you're like, wow, okay, for a Honda though, this is not in good condition at all. But obviously things like paint fade and oxidized headlights, ripped interiors, broken windows, stuff like that are going to be your best friend in that regard. Just look out for those small little things and you might be able to be like, okay, well, this car has a little bit of a bigger issue. And finally is a lot of things go wrong with the emissions in this car, which is weird to say the least, but a lot of people complain about emissions and how many check engine lights that they get in these cars. And if you aren't smart about that, and if you don't take care of those problems that should be taken care of, it could cause major issues no matter how reliable an engine is. If you're running no O2 sensors and your engine is pushing out more freaking fumes than it should be because it thinks that it's got 2 O2s, you know what I'm trying to say? It could be an issue, all right, buddy? So just make sure that you're looking into the good old check engine lights when they pop up on this car, which tend to happen a lot apparently. So make sure you're on top of your game with this car. So do I think that you should get an RSX or 4th generation Integra? Absolutely, man. There hasn't been many cars out there that I have immediately been like, yeah, this is a good choice for a car, and the RSX is one of them. It is very good. It checks all the boxes for everything I could think of, unless you want to drift. But if you're looking at this video and thinking of buying an RSX when you enjoy drifting, then to be honest with you, I don't know what you're thinking, because it's a front-wheel drive car. You should have known that before clicking on this video. Anyways, for a first car, it's a lot of fun for a first car, but not enough fun to get you into any trouble. And it's front-wheel drive, so daily driving in the winter is a possibility. You don't have to worry about like spinning out. You don't have to worry about going way too fast, but you still can go fast and have fun with it. And that's great. It's amazing to have a car like that as a first car. It's also very cheap, and parts are cheap for it too. So building it at that age will be a great start into the car community, and it won't break your bank. And for a seasoned veteran, I still think it's a great choice because of all the freaking potential this puppy has, baby. You can go at it with your knowledge that you have as a veteran in the car community, and you're going to have a blast with how easy it is to make power out of it. Like, imagine you're going into a 350Z, you know, you had a 350Z, you turbocharged a 350Z, and you made a bunch of power in it, and then you sell it and you buy an RSX. That jump is going to be crazy easy to you. You're going to be like, wow, this thing is freaking simple compared to the Z. I'm going to build this crap out of this, and you're going to have a blast with it. And for daily driving, obviously it's a great choice too. It's front wheel drive, it's reliable, it's good on gas mileage, it's an inline 4, and it's still fun when you want it to be, and it has space for you and a passenger, but not really space for like a family. So it's a good car for all those things. But that is the end of today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment another video you guys want to see down below, another car you guys want to see down below for next week. All right, next weekend, let me know what car to do a good, bad, and ugly on, baby. Got it done. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, you already know what to do. I already said it, so I'm not even going to say it again. I'm just all over the place today. Like, comment, and subscribe, though. That's what it was. It was like, comment, and subscribe in case you didn't know. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Das Vidania. Have a nice